Hello, everybody, and welcome to the League of Women Voters Hot Topics. We have a very special event today, a program for you. But before we go into our ranked choice voting talk for today, I just wanted to remind people that Thursday night we have another special Hot Topics. I'm going to try to share that screen, but probably won't work for me. There. Can everybody see that fragile democracy?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just want to remind you that this coming Thursday night from 7 to 9. We have a special UNCW event with two professors from North Carolina talking about their book, Fragile Democracy. And so I just want to remind you of that, and we'll try to put the link in so you can see that. Okay. Hang on, I just want to put this, I wanted to get out of gallery view, but it doesn't want to do that for me. Okay, well, anyway, we'll get Mary Ellen to fix that up for us. So anyway, today we're going to be having a talk about, learn about ranked choice voting. I don't know how much everybody knows about it, but it's one of my favorite things to think about in terms of changing our electoral systems. And today we have Diane Silver here to describe the whole process and answer questions, have some conversation, you know, what difference that might make for women candidates, for example, and other things, and especially how might it work in North Carolina. So anyway, Diane is the Partnership Program Coordinator for Fair Vote nationally, and she's also a Volunteer Partnership Chair for the Better Ballot North Carolina. So we have a local group. Diane is an environmental educator. She's worked on Capitol Hill as a legislative aide. She has worked at the wildlife educator. I couldn't think of the word wildlife educator. So it's just a wonderful range of background. And she has a bachelor's degree from Claremont McKenna College in California, and a master's degree, science degree in natural resources for the University of Michigan. So I'm going to turn it over to Diane, and I believe Stu Marsh is going to be watching the chat room. So we will save questions for the end, and hopefully have some conversation after we give you a chance to do your presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Diane Silver.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I appreciate it. Glad to be with you all here today. And Sue, I just want to invite you, if there are questions in the chat that you know, seem like it would be better to go ahead and address them in the moment, please feel free to just, you know, chime in. You know, don't worry about interrupting me, because I want to make sure that we, you know, if you feel like it's better to wait till the end, I'll let you be the judge of that.
Okay, we'll do.
I trust your judgment. All right, so with that, I'm going to dive right in and share my screen. Is everybody seeing my cover slide, ranked choice voting, a better way to vote?
Yes.
Great. All righty. So yeah, ranked choice voting is a better way to vote. Just but for way of introduction, I'm here today representing Better Ballot North Carolina. We are, as it says, a nonpartisan advocate for ranked choice voting, which we believe gives voters a greater choice, a greater voice, and a more representative democracy for everyone. So that's who we are. Today, this is what I'm going to share with you: why we need a better voting method, what ranked choice voting is and how it works, some of the advantages of RCV, who benefits from it, and most importantly, how you can help. So we're going to dive right in with why we need a better voting method. So the way we vote currently is called plurality voting, plurality method. And the way that works is the most votes wins, period, end of discussion. So we also call this winner take all. And the reason that we need a better method is because this winner take all method has a whole lot of problems. The first problem is simply that that we have non-majority winners. So as you can see in our little example here, when we have 4 candidates, let's say, in this race, our little yellow monster got 35% of the vote. And that was more than any of the other candidates. And so yellow wins. The problem is 65% of the voters wanted somebody else. So it just feels inherently wrong that you get to win elected office when more people did not want you than did. That is the basic problem with the way we vote right now. We don't have majority winners. And so 65% of the voters are not happy. And this problem becomes even worse as the field becomes even more crowded, as the field gets more and more fractured, as the vote gets more and more fractured by a crowded field, we can have very low plurality winners. Now, we actually are lucky here in North Carolina in that we have a law that says you have to have 30% to win. If nobody gets 30%, then there's a runoff. So at least we have that floor. But we believe that 30% still isn't good enough. If you get 30% of the vote, 70% wanted somebody else, that's still not good for representing the will of the constituency, the will of the electorate. In addition, that runoff election is very expensive. So we think that we need a better way. We think that majority rule should be a basic principle of democracy, but we don't actually have it. But there is a better way. It's called ranked choice voting. And this is how it works. It's actually very simple. When you get your ballot, instead of just checking off or bubbling in one candidate, you get to rank order the candidates in the order of preference. So just as you can see in the example here, first choice, second choice, third choice, it's super easy. We rank things all the time. Please go get me ice cream. Sure, what flavor do you want? Get me chocolate. If they don't have chocolate, please get me strawberry. If they don't have strawberry, please get me vanilla. That's a ranked choice right there. So voters are very familiar with it, and it's easy to fill in the bubbles and rank your choices. So then the way that it works is once the ballots are in, the votes are tallied. And what I like to make sure everybody understands is this is one person, one vote, same as it's always been in our democracy. So the first thing we do is we count all the first choice votes, only the first choice. Your one vote goes to one person. So we count them all up, but if nobody gets a majority is more than 50%. So 50% plus even just one single vote would be more than 50%. If no one gets a majority, then what we do is we eliminate the lowest vote getter. Last place gets dropped out. Sorry. And then we have a runoff with the remaining candidates. But instead of everybody having to physically go back to the polls in order to have that runoff, it's what we call an instant runoff, because we can count the votes again. We know who everybody wants to vote for in the runoff. If you voted for blue or lavender or orange, they are still in the race. If you voted for them before, you're voting for them again. They're still your first choice. It's only these purple voters whose first choice got dropped out who would need to make a second choice if they went back to the polls for a runoff. But because they ranked their ballot, voting officials know who their second choice is. It's on their ballot. So their second choice counts in the next tally of the votes. So as you can see, the purple votes get added in the appropriate column, whatever the second choice votes were for those voters, and we add up all the votes again. One more time, nobody got 50%. Blue is close, but not yet there. So the same thing is going to happen. The lowest vote getter gets eliminated. We have a runoff. It's an instant runoff. If your first choice is still in the running, or then it counts again. If your first choice got eliminated, your second choice counts. If your second choice got eliminated, your third choice counts. So these orange ballots are going to get added to the tallies. And now that there's only 2 candidates left, somebody's going to get more than 50%. And so now there's a winner. So the idea is that in any round of tallying, it's one person, one vote. Your vote goes to one candidate. It's not a weighted vote, or I want part of my vote to go here and part of my vote to go there. And your highest ranked choice is the one for whom your vote counts. And so the beauty of this is that as a voter, you get to express a lot more input into who's getting elected. You get a lot more voice in the election by being able to express those preferences. And by doing it, you don't hurt your first candidate, your first choice candidate in any way, because your vote only counts in order of preference. So as long as your first choice is in the running, your vote continues to go to your first choice. It's only if they get dropped out, then your vote goes to your next choice. So, so that's the basics of how it works. So I think we should give it a try. So this is a little demonstration that I want to invite you to do. If you just open up a new browser tab on your computer, if you're on Zoom on a desktop or phone on the app, you can go to your browser and open up a browser window. If you're on Zoom already in your browser, just open a new tab and you won't lose the Zoom call. And enter this URL that you see on the slide. It's www.fairvote.org. The capital letters don't matter. It's just for ease of reading. fairvote.org/demo1. And if you go there, you should see this. Barbara, can you confirm for me, are you seeing the poll?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is what it should look like if you pull it up. And the way that it works is you just drag and drop. So let's say that I want to vote for vanilla as my first choice. I just click and hold and drag it up and let go, and then vanilla gets pulled up. And then if strawberry is my second choice, you click and hold, pull it up to the box and let go, and it gets listed as your second choice. And if you made a mistake, or if you want to reorder, like let's say I decide, I actually like strawberry better, then I can click and hold vanilla and drag it down below strawberry and let go, and it reorders them. So I want to give everybody a minute to vote. I feel like now is the moment when I need music. I need that Jeopardy music. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum. I'm not a very good singer on Zoom. Let's see, I'm in the screen share mode. I'm not seeing everybody. How about if we ask everybody to give a little thumbs up in your reactions at the bottom of, once you have completed voting, if you go back to the Zoom window in your at the bottom on reactions, you can give, I think you can give a thumbs up to indicate that you are ready. I'm not seeing a lot of thumbs up. I see one thumbs up from Mary Ellen. So it's hard for me to know if people are voting or just watching and listening and want to see what happens. Do you want to unmute everybody just momentarily so we can be in more conversational mode? And if anybody has a question or wants to ask about how this works, you can. I'm not sure if everybody's voting or not. Should I move on? Should we do the tally? All right, in the interest of time, let's say that you've completed your voting. Let's say that I only voted for these top two. My vote is going to influence a little bit, but not much. You have to click I'm not a robot to make sure that you can submit your vote. And once you submit your vote, you will then get a little advertisement for ranked choice voting, which you can
I think we better mute again.
oh, sorry. All right. All right. Yep, go ahead and mute everybody, Mary Ellen. Sorry.
Services of a Mr. Book, intriguingly enough. Book School Notary. His name speaks of a much more professional attitude altogether. I see the tweed jacket. All
right. Okay, I'm moving on. If I click on view results, Barbara, is everything still okay?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm a little screwed up, but that's me, not you.
Okay.
I have 3 comments in chat that say that they can't open up the link.
They can't open the link. Huh. All right.
My link didn't work. My link wasn't working. My link wasn't hyperlinked.
All right. Oh no, there's no hyperlink because you're just viewing my Zoom screen. You have to type it in manually. www.fairvote, I'll go back to here, .fairvote.org/demo1. You can't just click on the screen because it's not a live link on your end. So if you type it in manually, it should take you there. I'm going to go ahead and look at the results, and this is an ongoing poll. So if it didn't work for you right now, or if you haven't had a chance to catch up, you can do it on your own afterwards. It's always open. Once you have submitted your ranking, you can click on view results and you'll get this page. And you can see we have 185 votes at the moment, and that's a lot more than who's on this Zoom call, because I use this demo over and over and over again, because the more votes that we get, the better an example it becomes. So what it's showing us here is the final result. It looks like Oreo, with our 185 votes, is the winner. But I want to take you through round by round so you can see how it worked. So in the first round, Oreo was not the winner. It looks like coffee was the leader with 18% of the vote. So if this had been a straight plurality vote, the way that we vote today, coffee would have won, even though they only got 18% of the vote. But because this is a ranked vote, the lowest vote getter is going to get eliminated. It looks like that's going to be Butterscotch Swirl. So if we go on to round 2, we can see that Butterscotch Swirl gets eliminated. Their second choices then get added to whatever they preferred. And you can see the green shows the addition of those few votes. It looks like coffee is still in the lead with 18%. So we're going to move to round 3. Looks like pralines and cream is going to get eliminated next. And I go to round 3. My mouse is not cooperating. Pralines and cream gets eliminated, and more votes have been added as second choice or third choices. Coffee is still in the lead. We're going to see round 4 where fruit and sherbet are going to get eliminated. Coffee is still in the lead. We're going to move to round 5 where it looks like strawberry is going to get eliminated. I think strawberry and chocolate chip might both be eliminated. Nope, just strawberry. Looks like the strawberry people really increased the vanilla vote as their next choice. But nobody has a majority, so we're keeping going. Now look what happened. Wow. Vanilla is still at 12%, but with the chocolate chip people eliminated, mint chocolate chip and coffee have both gotten a boost from their later preferences. In round 7, with vanilla eliminated, Oreo is now catching up in a significant way to coffee, and chocolate has gotten additional votes beyond first choice votes. So the green shows you how the vote changes each time. Click on round 8. Coffee is still ahead of Oreo, but the gap is closing. We click on round 9 and look what happens. Once we eliminated Moose Tracks, Oreo as a next choice for all those Moose Tracks lovers, Oreo has now taken the lead ahead of coffee. But nobody has a majority yet. We've got a three candidate race now that looks like it's really split evenly. This is close to 33% for all 3 candidates. So a very, very close race. As we move to round 10 with only 2 left, finally Oreo takes the lead. So that's a really interesting ranked choice voting example of how, with a very crowded field, the initial leader was not the final winner in the end. And so if coffee had been elected to office, you actually would have had a lot of voters who would have been less than happy with coffee. They probably would have been okay, because in this race, it turns out coffee was still the second place leader. So a lot of people probably would have been okay with coffee, but to have the greatest will of the voters represented, Oreo was the appropriate winner.
Diane?
Yes.
This is Sue. In the chat box, there's a question. With 2 to 4 eliminations, don't just as many people end up with not getting their first choice as voting with a simple majority? I belong to an organization where they tried ranked choice voting to elect a chair, and the second choice won the election.
And the second choice won the election. Well, second choice from from whom? Like the second choice from round one? You don't know, because it's not your
I don't know.
Right. Well, so I'll try to answer it, which is I don't have data. I can't answer the actual question for sure. In a ranked choice with some number of candidates, don't just as many people get their second choice as in a plurality vote? The answer is we'll never know, because in a plurality vote, we don't ask voters who is your second choice. So we don't know who their second choice is. What's happening in reality in our politics today is we're in a very hyper partisan environment where it's this binary choice of left or right. And you feel like either you won or you lost. 100%. Either my candidate won, or I ended up with the other side, the other party, who is somebody who I detest. And in general, there's a feeling for approximately half the population feeling that they're not happy with whoever's in office. Whereas with this kind of a system, when you get to express a second choice, a third choice, a fourth choice, even if you end up with not your first choice, simply being able to give that level of input gives you a different attitude toward the winner. If the winner ends up being your second choice or your third choice, but happily not your last choice, you feel better about that person winning and that person being in office. You feel that you're at least being somewhat represented. So what we have found in exit polls and follow-up polls where ranked choice voting is used is that more voters express satisfaction with the outcome with ranked choice voting than with plurality voting. That's the best I can do to answer that. But thank you for bringing it up. I'm going to press on with the presentation, and then we can take more questions and have more discussion at the end. So let me see if I can go back to my presentation notes here. Okay, so there are some additional advantages besides the plurality problem, although they're related to the plurality problem. And a big one is vote splitting. And this might actually get to the question that was asked. When you have more than 2 candidates, it's very common for the vote to be split between 2 or more of them. So in my little example here, we're voting on pizza instead of ice cream. And let's say that in this electorate, there are 2 primary camps, 2 sides, the meat eaters and the vegetarians. And in our graph here, you can see that there are more meat eaters than vegetarians. There are 54% meat eaters and 46% vegetarians, but there are 2 meat candidates. And so the vote has been split between those 2 meat candidates, between sausage and pepperoni. And so with a plurality vote, even though there are more meat eaters, the vegetarians win because their vote was consolidated all around one single candidate. And so that happens in the real world all the time. We get vote splitting frequently, where the winner is a non-majority winner because the vote of the majority was split between 2 candidates. This happens especially with third-party candidates and independents. And so what happens is it leads to strategic voting, where as a voter, you said to yourself, well, if I was to go back to our pizza example, this sausage candidate with the lower percentage might be a third candidate, a third party, a party that's kind of up and coming. And they're often called the spoiler for exactly this effect. So as a voter, you might say, well, I really like sausage best, but I know that sausage is a long shot. They're probably not going to win in the end. So should I vote for sausage because I want to vote my heart and I want to help sausage and my sausage party gain traction? Or should I go ahead and vote for pepperoni, even though that's really my second choice, because I don't want to split the vote and end up having those darn vegetarians win? I don't want to help the party I don't like by voting for the party that I actually like the best, or voting for the candidate I actually like the best. And that kind of strategic voting happens all the time. And it's one of the greatest weaknesses of our current system. Voters should not have to play mind games when they go to the polls. With ranked choice voting, you can simply vote your heart. You can vote honestly. The best strategy is to simply vote honestly. Rank your first choice first. Rank your second choice second. Your third choice third. You don't have to strategize, and you won't hurt your favorite by voting for a second choice or a third choice, and you won't help your least favorite by voting for your first choice first, because you get that opportunity to rank the others. So that's one of the primary benefits of the ranked choice system. Another problem about vote splitting is that both of the major parties have been guilty of weaponizing this vote splitting phenomenon, where they try to get involved in the other party's campaign in order to get the vote to be split. There has been documentation of supporters of party A giving money to a candidate who's in party B, like in a primary, because they want the weaker candidate to win because they'll be easier to beat in the general. Or they want to split the vote among let's say, like when the Democrats interfere, it might be to support a libertarian who they think is going to draw votes away from a Republican candidate. Let's get the conservative side to split, and then our single candidate will win. And it works the other way around. It works, with conservative factions or special interests trying to get progressive voters to support a green candidate, so that it will draw votes away from the Democrat. The vote will be split, and then the conservative side will win. So it's been done both ways, and it's a negative tactic that's trying to take advantage of this vote splitting phenomenon. If we didn't have, if we had ranked choice voting, we wouldn't have vote splitting, and then we wouldn't have that kind of weaponization. Okay, I'm moving on. Ranked choice voting eliminates all these problems, just like I said. Another problem is wasted votes. So there's two kinds of wasted votes. One is the vote splitting thing that I just talked about. When that happens, people often feel that their vote was wasted. It's that strategic voting analysis. If I vote for my favorite, am I wasting my vote? Am I throwing away my vote by voting for someone who probably doesn't have a very good chance to win? And people get blamed and shamed. Their friends will tell them, oh my God, don't vote for a third party, you're wasting your vote. And someone's like, but I want to support the third party. I should be allowed to support the third party without being shamed about it. And we think that that should be. But another way that votes get wasted is in the primary. Here's a little modest example in case you have forgotten from last year or 5 years ago. These are the ballots from the 2020 Democratic primary and the 2016 Republican primary. These are our two most recent presidential primaries where there were really, really crowded fields in the primary election, where the vote was split many, many ways. And this is just a list to remind you that I think there were 17 candidates in 2016. There were 29 at one point in 2020. And when people vote early, like early voting is a really important tool to help increase voter participation, and I encourage early voting. But there's a problem with primaries in that if you take advantage of early voting, maybe you got to go to work on Tuesday and you can't get to the polls. if you voted for a candidate who subsequently drops out before your election day, when your votes get counted, your vote got wasted. And that happened to more than 2 million voters on Super Tuesday, more than 4.5 million voters nationally through the course of the 2020 presidential election. That candidate list was so long, and people voted for, I don't know, Amy Klobuchar or Pete Buttigieg or whoever it was, and they had dropped out before Super Tuesday. And so their ballot was wasted, their vote was wasted. And they're like, wait, can I have my ballot back? And the answer is no, you can't have your ballot back. You already voted. So that's a huge problem. If we had ranked choice voting for those primaries, if their first choice had dropped out before election day in their state, their next choice would have automatically counted, and they would not have been disenfranchised. So that's a huge problem with plurality voting, which ranked choice voting solves. So no more vote splitting, no more wasted votes, real or perceived. Next problem with plurality voting and the way we have things now, negativity. Oh my God, aren't we all exhausted with the negativity in politics these days? We are just crippled with this hyper-partisanship, and it's a strategic thing. Our voting system rewards negativity. Candidates are incentivized to go down the mudslinging path because it works. It works to get voters riled up, to create scandal, to create controversy, to get people pumping their fist and marching in the streets and feeling angry and feeling combative. That's how you get out the vote, and that's how you win. And so, of course, candidates are going to do that. What we have found is that with ranked choice voting, oops, I don't have a slide for it. With ranked choice voting, the strategies change, the incentives change for the candidates, because those second choice or third choice votes are needed to get over the hurdle of 50% to get a majority. You don't want to alienate your opponent's supporters. You want to try to convince people to come to your side. You want to sway people, but you don't want to alienate them. So it's not effective to go with a character assassination, because that's going to alienate those voters and they're not going to give you their second or third choice. It's better to focus on the issues. It's better to be positive and to say, well, I respect my distinguished opponent, blah, blah, blah. We disagree in these fundamental ways, and this is why I encourage you to vote for me. We've also found that with ranked choice races, we will actually find candidates who team up and campaign together. And they will say, vote for me number one and vote for them number two. Then the other one will say, no, vote for me number one and vote for them number two. But it's a much more positive campaign tone because they're not tearing each other down. So that's a benefit of ranked choice voting. And then finally, runoffs are expensive. Administering an election is a lot of money, and that is taxpayer money that could go to all kinds of other things that I can think of to spend money on in our cities and counties. And so with ranked choice voting, we don't need to have runoffs. We don't need to run the election all over again. And the other thing that's really great about not having to have runoffs in person is that runoffs are notoriously low turnout. It's really, really hard to get the vote turnout for the runoff the way that you did for the general election. And so allowing people to give their preferences the first time that they come to the polls, and to have those runoff rounds be instant runoffs rather than in-person runoffs, you get a much better result representing the wishes of the full electorate. When we have runoffs, the truth is a very, very small percentage of people are making the choice on behalf of everyone, because so few people turn up. So just to recap, ranked choice voting offers all of these advantages. Oh, I missed a slide. Just to recap, these are all the problems with plurality voting: non-majority winners, vote splitting, strategic voting, limited choices, wasted votes, hyper-partisanship, negative campaigning, and weaponizing the system. And ranked choice voting solves all of those problems. We get more choice, We eliminate that spoiler effect. It changes the political incentives. We get more positive campaigns, and we get majority winners. So the benefit is basically everybody, voters, candidates, parties, the community, democracy as a whole. For voters, you get more candidates from whom to choose. And I glossed over this, but because of that spoiler effect, very often third-party candidates or independent candidates don't run at all. They get so shamed or blamed about vote splitting that they don't run. They get told, don't run, you're going to split the vote. If we had ranked choice voting, more good people might choose to run in the first place, and we would have more choices on the ballot. More views get represented. There would be room for nuance in platforms. Candidates could distinguish themselves from other candidates through more nuanced views. Most voters are not 100% conservative or 100% progressive or 100% in agreement with the platform of one party or another. Many voters feel conservative on some issues and progressive on other issues, but candidates aren't able to represent that kind of nuanced view because you gotta be all or nothing in with the party. Whereas if we had this ranked system, there would be room under the tent for more nuance, whether it's as an independent or third-party candidate or simply within the two major parties. So voters would get more choice. You get to vote your conscience without fear of wasting your vote. Your voice gets heard all the way to the end and you don't have to go back to the polls and vote again. For candidates, you get more positive campaigning and less mudslinging. You don't get cast as a spoiler. You avoid the cost of having to keep campaigning during a runoff season. You get to claim majority support. Once the election is over and you're elected, you actually have a stronger mandate to govern effectively because you have a leg to stand on to say, I got elected with a majority of support. And these days, there's this new verb in our language called being primaried, right? And with ranked choice voting, there is less fear of being primaried by a more extreme candidate within the party because of the ranking system. You can stay in the game and voters can express those nuances of choice. For parties, you could have a bigger umbrella. There's room under the tent for that range of views. And if we used ranked choice voting in primaries and partisan primaries, parties would be assured that the nominee in the general election, the candidate who wins the primary, is the one with the broadest support from within the party, because it motivates. And that will motivate turnout for the general election. When more voters within your party are excited about the candidate, they're more likely to turn out for the general election. So that's good for parties. For the smaller parties, no more being blamed as a spoiler. Voting for your real favorite is not a wasted vote, and third parties can begin to gain traction, especially at the local and state levels. So it's the opportunity to build the bench, if you will. For communities, come on, commuter, we avoid the cost of having to pay for another round of elections when we have to do, if we had to do runoffs. We get less rancor and conflict, and no blame for voters who voted their conscience. And for democracy, everyone's voice is heard, every vote counts. Generally, there's an increase in voter participation because voters are more engaged because they have more choices. There's at least somebody on the ballot who they're excited about, and so they want to come out and vote. Voters tend to be better informed when they're being asked to rank the candidates. They're learning more about the candidates to do that ranking, and people are more engaged. So, phew. I've been talking fast because it's a lot of stuff, and I realize that we want to have time for questions. So I have a little bit more about how you can help, but before we do that, I want to pause and stop screen sharing and take time for questions thus far.
Diane, we have two questions in the chat room currently. The first one is, how can this process be managed during actual elections? I assume it's all accomplished with entering everyone's choices and then the computer programs do the rest?
Excellent question. Yeah, there is software that is part of the voting, the voting machine, you know, it's computer software. So let me do it this way. Our voting machines are already computers. We're already using computers to tally votes. We vote on a paper ballot. You bubble in your choice. Right now it's only one choice. That your ballot gets scanned. When you put it into the machine, you're sliding it in that slot and it's being scanned. And then that data is collected and then the vote is tallied through the computer. The paper ballots are the safety net in case there needs to be an audit of the election. If there's any controversy about what the result is, if they need to run it again, they can rescan all the ballots and run it again. Or if need be, a hand count can be done. But we already use scanners and electronic counting to tally votes the way we vote now. So that is exactly what would happen with the ranked ballot. Is you would have that grid with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The ballot would be scanned, the data would be captured, and then it takes 30 seconds to hit the button on the computer and for the ranked choice voting rounds to be tallied, and you get a result, and you can get round by round results. So that is how it's administered. If there needs to be an audit of some kind, then that can take longer. But it's the same. It's basically the same as the way we do it now.
Thank you. The second question is, oh, wait a minute, I just lost it. North Carolina has trouble getting candidates to run, especially in the hyper-partisan districts. How does ranked choice voting encourage new candidates?
Well, it's a great question. It's just as I said, often what prevents candidates from running is being discouraged, especially by the major parties, that their candidacy might split the vote and actually help the other side of the partisan spectrum, you know, who they consider the other side. Whichever side you consider the other side, it works both ways. So that's one. Another thing that discourages people from running is the negativity of campaigning. You got to have a really, really thick skin to run for office, because it's very possible that you're going to get character assassination as a campaign strategy from the other side. And so you have to be ready to go on the defensive and to answer, you know, those kinds of critiques. And you also often are encouraged by party management to go on the offensive and to do the mudslinging. And a lot of people don't want to be part of that whole negative environment. So with ranked choice voting, we eliminate the fear of the vote splitting and that spoiler effect, and therefore you won't get blamed as being a spoiler. You know, you run and maybe you only get a small fraction of the vote. And if that's the case, you'll be the one who gets dropped out, and all of your supporters will get their second choice counted. So voting for you is not a risk for your supporters, and knowing that makes it more safe, makes it feel more safe to run in the first place, like being like, I don't want to screw anything up, as well as having a more positive environment. So I would say that those two are the big ones that would encourage more good people to run for office.
Thank you, Diane. The next question, actually a statement that you can respond to. Actually, for some offices, such as county commissioners, we already vote for more than one choice.
Excellent point. There is another form of ranked choice voting that I haven't gone into today because it's kind of like too much all at once. What I explained today is what's called single winner ranked choice voting. It's the method that's used when there's just one seat, like for governor or for senator or mayor or something like that. There's another method of tallying that's called multi-winner ranked choice voting, which is used for bodies that have more than one seat, exactly as you described, like county commissioners. And in that one, it works exactly the same way for the voters. You simply rank order the candidates. So let's say that there are 3 seats up for election and there are 10 candidates running for those 3 seats. You would rank order the 10 or as many as you want, and that's it for the voter. Very simple. And then the method of tallying is a little bit different. And I don't have the slides all pulled up. I do have a slideshow on this one, but I didn't have it pulled up for today. But it's called single transferable vote. And the way that it works is a tallying method that gives us close to proportional representation for the electorate. So the threshold to win is not 50%. Because there's multiple seats. The threshold to win, it depends on how many seats are available. And once one candidate gets past that threshold, they are elected. They've gotten one of the available seats. And beyond that, if they get more votes than they need, then all of the people who voted for them for first choice will get a portion of their vote applied to their second choice candidate. So in this case, there is some fractional voting. But as a voter, you don't have to decide how to split your vote. There's been talk about having systems like where you can split your vote and say, I want half my vote to go to candidate A and half my vote to go to candidate B. But the problem with that is that the voter has to be unbelievably savvy and strategic, and frankly, has to have a crystal ball, which is impossible. It's kind of a no-win for the voter because you don't know how to use your vote in the most effective way, because when the voter is asked to split their vote consciously. So with a ranked system, you don't have to make that choice. You just say, my first choice is so-and-so, my second choice is so-and-so, my third choice is so-and-so. If your first choice gets eliminated, your vote goes to your second choice. But also, if your first choice is already elected, then a portion of your vote goes to your second choice, because the idea is, let's say that you needed 30% to win a seat and 70% of the voters chose candidate A. That suggests that a big majority of the population wants candidate A or people like candidate A. So those voters deserve more representation in the body. Like, those voters deserve approximately 70% of the seats. So it makes sense that they get to help elect an additional winner. And so the vote, a fraction of those votes go to the second choice. So it's not like, well, the first 30%, their vote counts for A, and then whoever's ballot got counted last, their second choice counts. That's not how it works. Everybody who chose them for first choice gets a portion of their vote to apply to their second choice. It's hard to explain in words. There's really good videos that I can put into the chat or send to Barbara to send out as a follow-up. And I also could come back as a follow-up and show some slides on how it works. But that is the answer. Is we use a ranked system. We use multi-winner tallying instead of single winner. It's called single transferable vote. And it's what I consider the gold standard for elections, because you end up with close to proportional representation in your legislature, whether it's the county commissioners or the city council or the state legislature or whatever the body is. So that's a great question. I hope that made sense.
Thank you. Yes. The next question, it seems like RCV would encourage third or fourth parties. If this is so, it seems like the two major parties would oppose this. And if so, it seems like they would oppose legislation to bring it about. Is this correct?
Well, it's a good question. And the answer is yes and no. Yes, it encourages third parties, but it doesn't necessarily hurt the major parties. The thing to understand is that it also benefits the major parties. Right now, we're in this hyper-partisan win-lose environment. And part of the reason that the major parties have such fear of third parties is because of that vote splitting phenomenon. But with ranked choice voting, because vote splitting is no longer a problem, I feel like it's a safe way to encourage third parties that isn't necessarily detrimental to the major parties. The first thing is it's going to take some time for third parties to gain traction, and maybe probably the major parties will still continue to win, to do well, but the voices, the positions, the perspectives of those third party candidates will begin to matter more. So, like, I think that what we ought to care about most is voters. We should care about voters more than we care about parties. And if third parties are gaining traction, it's because voters want those views represented. And so it shows everybody, whether it's a third party or a major party, this is what the voters want. This is what people care about. So major parties can continue to retain power if they will be responsive to the voters and if they will adjust their platforms and their policies in the way that it seems voters want. If they don't do that, then the third parties might start winning. If third parties win seats, then what will happen is it will become more important to form coalitions within the governing body. Like if, you know, it is true that major parties may have less of a majority, but if you've got, if Democrats don't need to be afraid of Green Party candidates, for example, and Republicans don't need to be afraid of Libertarian candidates, because in the legislature, they're going to work in coalition when it comes time to vote on things. But those people just may not be towing the party line quite as much because they're not part of that party. So it goes back to incentivizing the parties to be responsive to the voters. But the question of, isn't it going to be a tough sell to get the major parties to pass this? The answer is a little bit, but because there are so many benefits to the major parties also, we are making gains slowly. We have seen ranked choice voting adopted in cities across the country. 2 states have adopted it at the state level. This is the fastest growing electoral reform out there. It is really gaining momentum, and that's happening through ballot initiatives where voters vote for it. And it's also happening through legislatures adopting it. In Utah, the conservative legislature passed legislation to allow ranked choice voting. So they recognize the value of it. And as more and more cities and states are using it, it's gaining traction even with the 2 major parties.
Thank you. The next question. I support the national popular vote for president, but I have no idea how RCV would work, especially if states had RCV and other states did not. Can you explain how that would work?
Yes, excellent question. So the National Popular Vote Compact, I assume this person is talking about the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, because that's the only way that we're going to get the national popular vote. The only other way would be a U.S. constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College, which is never going to happen in the current political environment. So with the National Popular Vote Compact, the way that it works is it only goes into effect once enough states have joined the compact that their electoral votes for all the states that are in add up to the 270 needed for a candidate to win the presidency. So when that happens, I like to say when and not if, when that happens, then we would have to count the ballots, we would count the ballots nationally. Like national popular vote can work even with plurality voting, with just vote for one candidate. So at that time, then what we would recommend would be that at the federal level, that we adopt ranked choice voting across the board. So there's 2 ways that it could work. I'm trying to say this the easiest way. There's 2 ways it could work. One would be for every single state to use ranked choice voting in the presidential election, so that the national tally would be a ranked choice tally. Okay. The other way would be that only the first choice votes nationally would be counted. So even if some states are using ranked choice voting, once the compact goes into effect, then if not everybody's using ranked choice voting, we would only count the first choice votes, and that would determine the result of the national popular vote, and that winner would win the presidency. But there's another way where ranked choice voting can be really beneficial, even without the national popular vote compact being in effect yet. And that is state by state, we can vote for our presidential electors however we want. So if North Carolina decided that we wanted to use ranked choice voting for the presidential election, we could do that. They're doing it in Maine. They're going to be doing it in Alaska. So the way that would work is in North Carolina, the winner of our presidential vote would be through a ranked choice ballot. We would say it's not just whoever got the most votes gets all of North Carolina's electoral votes. You have to get, those candidates have to get more than 50%. So if there's a Republican candidate, a Democratic candidate, and a Green candidate and a Libertarian, like there have been in the past, 4 candidates, there would be a ranked choice tally that gets done to determine who wins in North Carolina. Then, just as happens now, that winner would get North Carolina's electoral votes. But that could make a big difference in swing states. North Carolina is a pretty purple state. And so, like, this is a really good example how that vote splitting can really have an impact. If there is a Republican candidate and a Libertarian and a Democrat, the conservative vote could conceivably get split, and the Democratic candidate could end up on top. Just within North Carolina, they would get North Carolina's electoral votes. And it could work vice versa. If there is a Green candidate and a Democrat and a Republican, the progressive vote could get split and the Republican could come out on top. They would get all of North Carolina's electoral votes. But if we had ranked choice voting, that ultimate winner would have to get a majority of North Carolina votes. And then that would determine who gets our electoral votes in the national 270. Whew. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Diane, that's the last question in the chat room, but I have one myself.
Sure.
If I were the head of a very large political PAC, and I had one candidate that I really wanted to win, and I sent out to all of the members of my PAC and supporters, only vote for number 1. Don't vote 2, 3, 4, or whatever. Can't I give a lot more weight to my one candidate because I'm not swinging any other votes from my PAC to anybody else?
No, the answer is no, you're not helping your candidate. I know that seems a little counterintuitive when you are first, like your gut feeling is it can't be good. Like, surely it would be better to just be focused on my one candidate. But the thing about ranked choice voting is that your second choice, third choice, fourth choice means absolutely nothing unless your first candidate gets dropped out. As long as your first choice is in the game, is in the race, your vote goes to that person. So what you're essentially saying to all of your supporters is go out on election day and vote for candidate A, our candidate. And then if let's say, if there's a runoff election, let's say candidate A gets dropped out, like, sorry, you were not the top winner. Now there's going to be a runoff among the remaining candidates. You are telling all of your voters, don't go vote in the runoff. Candidate A lost, so we're going to all be sore losers and we're not even going to participate in the runoff. We're going to let everybody else make the decision and we're going to be stuck with whoever they choose, because we are so only about candidate A that we don't even want to have anything to say about who ends up in office. In my mind, that's not a good strategy for getting the policies that you want. Yes, candidate A is your top choice and is the one you really want, but there's going to be somebody else in that field who would be at least second best. I mean, they may not be supporting all of the policies that you want, but my guess is that you could identify the ones you don't want. You could identify who you hate the most, right? Even if you consider all the other candidates the evils, isn't it better to get to choose the lesser of those evils? To say, if I can't have the one I want, I at least want to have some say in who I'm stuck with. So that would be my response, is choosing not to rank is basically saying, I don't want to participate in any runoffs if my candidate gets eliminated. And you can choose that, you know, here in America, we don't make people participate in voting, but I think that that's just disenfranchising voters. And I don't think it's helping your policy causes, whatever policies you're trying to support, you're not helping get the next best candidate in office who might be convincible. Does that help?
Thank you. Yes, and there are no more questions in the chat room.
Okay. Well, I want to go back to sharing my screen then and just move on real briefly. It's 12 o'clock and most of these meetings are usually about an hour. I want to respect people's time. But real quick, I want to move on to how you can help. I have to get back to my screen switching. There we go. How you can help. So I have two requests for you today. So for all of our participants, thank you so much for your time today. If you're still with us, thank you for staying. Thank you for listening. We need your support. If you think this is a good idea, if I have convinced you that ranked choice voting would be better than the way we do it now, we would love to have you join. We would love to have you register that support. So what we would like is for you to go to our website, which is betterballot-NC.org. And where you see the red arrow here, there's this link at the top bar, sign up to support. This is like signing a petition. It is asking you for your name and your contact info, including where your address, because that determines your congressional, district. But it will add you to the Better Ballot database. What I promise you, I pinky swear, we will not spam you. We may contact you to say thank you for signing up and to invite you, like, would you like to volunteer? Would you like to help? Once you get our first email, if you want to opt out of ever hearing from us again, there's an unsubscribe at the bottom of the email, so you can just immediately unsubscribe. But having you in the database as a supporter of ranked choice voting gives us a really great leg to stand on when we approach legislators to try to convince them to support this as a reform. It is going to require legislation because North Carolina doesn't have ballot initiative the way they do up in Maine. So we want to be able to go to legislators and say, this many thousands and thousands of voters in North Carolina have told us that they think this is a good idea. So that's number one, is we would love for you to go to join in and support. I don't want to try to steal volunteers and activists away from League of Women Voters. But I will put out there that we welcome volunteers. If you are excited about this, if you feel like, oh my God, this is the reform I've been looking for, how can I help? We have lots of opportunities to help move this along, including doing like what I'm doing today. If you would be interested in doing outreach, we have informal outreach where you just talk to people one-on-one, maybe go to the farmer's market, knock on people's doors, phone banking, all that normal stuff. We also have a formal speakers bureau if you wanted to do a presentation like this one to other groups. We also have behind the scenes work that we need volunteers for, research and artwork and graphics and technology and things like that. And we always welcome money. If you have money but not time, you can certainly help sustain this work by making a donation. Same website, betterballot-NC.org. You can click on the Sustain Us button to make a financial contribution. You can click on Become a Volunteer if you want to sign up to volunteer. But at the very least, we would love to have you click Sign Up to Support, just to register that you agree with this reform. So there's that. The other thing is we really welcome and need group support. And so my request to you as a group, and I know that you cannot answer this in the moment, is we would love to have League of Women Voters of Cape Fear, your local chapter, endorse ranked choice voting if you agree together that it's something you want to endorse. I know that the League of Women Voters has a whole process for endorsement, and I am happy to tell you that the national League, the League of Women Voters US, passed a position, God, I'm going to say this not exactly right. It's a position that was adopted in June of 2020 at the National Convention that essentially allows state and local chapters to endorse a range of electoral reforms that meet a certain set of criteria, and ranked choice voting does. So it means that as a local chapter, you can and choose to endorse ranked choice voting without having to do a study or submit anything to the higher levels, etc. I mean, I just want to bring that to your attention because I know it's a League of Women Voters process thing. So I'd love to encourage you to talk about that as a group in your business meetings, and we'll be following up with you to see whether you're willing to do that or how we might how else we might work together as advocates of electoral integrity and strength to maybe reach some common goals. So that's it. Thank you so much for having me today. I'll
Thank
take
you.
more comments,
Thank
discussion.
you. Thank you very, very much. That was very informative and thought-provoking. I have a whole bunch of things that we could go on for another hour, but I'll just say thank you very much. And hopefully we'll be working with you or at least thinking about it and get back to you and let you know.
Barbara,
Yes,
could someone put in the chat room the link to the demo so that people could try the demo that they weren't able to do early on?
I will do that right now. I will do that
Thank
right
you.
now.
okay, thank you.
RCV demo is www.fairvote.org/demo1. For what it's worth, demo of multi-winner, because somebody asked about that, demo of multi-winner RCV is the same thing, www.fairvote.org, and that is demo 2. There's another one. I think on that one we vote for pizza topping, where you can have more than one topping. I think we're going to elect 3 pizza toppings. So if somebody's interested, you can go through and see how round by round how the vote transfers work. That I'll put that in there, and I'll also put support RCV is www.betterballot-NC.org. It's only 3 W's, not 4. Betterballot-NC.org. And at that's where you can, at the very least, add your name as a supporter. And then if you're so inclined, you could sign up as a volunteer or donate some money.
Thank you. I'm sure you'll be hearing from some of us. I've already signed up.
Wonderful.
So
Thank you
bias.
so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you very much.
All right, and if anybody has later questions, you can also, I'm pretty sure there's a contact us link on that Better Ballot website. So if you have additional questions, 3 o'clock in the morning, you suddenly are like, wait a minute, what about this? Please feel free to get on there and contact us with your question, and somebody, probably me, will get back to you and we'll be happy to answer additional questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What else? Are we done? Are we logging off?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Okay.
Recording stopped.
All right. Yes, I was going to say you're going to save the recording and it's going to be posted somewhere.
Yes, on our website. We'll put it on our website. The League of Women Voters of the Lower Cape